Okay, well, so glad to get a chance to talk to you. Give us just tell us who you are and
hmm
give us just a bit of background on you before we start talking about the show.
Okay, well, I am Jay Daughtry. I play Harpo in The Color Purple. I am originally from Florida. I graduated from Bethune-Cookman University down in Daytona Beach, Florida. My background has been in several things. After graduating, I moved to DC and I was a banker for a while, and then I was a teacher for a while, and now I am an actor uh, based in New York City. Um, I my Broadway debut was done in Beautiful the musical, and here I am in The Color Purple now playing Harpo. So
Okay, now did you actually live in D.C. or did you live like in Alexandria or Silver Spring? Or I
no,
asked that because I used to live at
uh-huh.
1027 G Street Northeast,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I lived in Woodley Park. I lived
okay.
in Woodley Park, and then I also lived down in Southeast DC, right off of Southern Avenue, in Southeast. I lived there for maybe 3 months or so. But yeah, I actually lived in the city.
Okay. Yeah, I used to live
hmm
over 630 Southeast 6 in DC too, over in Anacostia. So
Yeah, Anacostia. Yeah,
yeah,
I know the neighborhood.
yeah, lifetime ago. In fact, this morning I got a chance to talk about how I used to work at the McDonald's across from the bus station in DC. So
And the one in Anacostia.
no, well, they tore it down, but it was back in the early '80s.
Oh, okay.
and then
Oh,
I
okay.
and then I had worked on Capitol Hill for Congressman Fauntleroy, so that was a long time
Ah,
ago. So,
yeah.
one interesting thing before I get into your Broadway, we did an article not so long ago about the revival of theater in D.C. with a particular emphasis on engaging the African American community and getting more African Americans involved in theater. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
I when I was in DC, I was a banker, so I didn't really do much theater. However, when I was deciding to leave DC and to go to New York, I did audition there, and at that time, this was maybe like 4 years ago, 5 years. No, it had to be like 7 years ago. I'm sorry. It was it was difficult because there wasn't much theater happening for African Americans in the area. But I was doing the BB Winans show, Born for This, in LA earlier this year, and I was talking to one of the guys that was in the show, and he mentioned that there's so much theater happening now for African Americans in the DC area, which was really surprising to me, and it was also, I was happy to hear that, because when I was there, there wasn't much for us to do, but apparently that the times have changed, and now there are opportunities there.
well, I brought that up also because I know that it just seems that there's so much talent out there, but there isn't always the avenues to cultivate the talent. And in a place like DC, where you have Howard, and then you have the
hmm
surrounding communities, if you couldn't have that kind of grassroots indigenous community
Yeah,
theater there, where could you? I guess
right,
maybe a
right.
Chicago, but other than that, it just
Right.
seems.
And I like to say that in that area, in the DMV altogether, there are so many talented people. But a lot of times we find ourselves having to get on a bus and go to New York, to audition, or to go down to Atlanta to do anything. But it's good to hear that in areas like um, DC and Chicago and Atlanta and Nashville, there are, more theater driven opportunities popping up.
So how does one make the decision to go fr- from being to banking,
hmm
or then to teaching to theater? I mean, how old were
Well,
you when you made this decision?
so in high school and my first year of college, I was a voice major, a theater/voice major, and I changed my decision. I mean, I changed my major in college at Bethune-Cookman. But for me, it was a lot. Life was guiding me. I'll say it like that.
Did they talk? Did they talk to you into being more practical there?
No, I actually made the decision.
Okay.
My mother wanted me to stay in voice, but I talked myself. I wanted to make sure that
you could eat.
I would have a career. Yeah, and I also started interning with BET back in college with Joe Claire and the Mad Sports Show, and so I was going more so in that direction. But once I started working and the banks crashed, when the banks crashed is when I didn't have to leave, but I decided to leave the bank because our quota started going crazy, and people started doing the crazy things to make sure that they stayed afloat at work. So I decided to leave there and to go to teach for a year down in Clinton, Maryland. And once I was there, I realized I didn't really like kids. So I couldn't do that anymore. And the only thing I had left that I could think of was, I used to do this thing and I used to be good at it. So let me go back and try. And I moved to New York, and the first thing that I booked was Motown the musical. And I did that for 2.5 years. And after that, just doors started opening.
What role did you play in Motown the musical?
I was Dennis Edwards and Mickey Stevenson. I was also a Berry Gordy cover and a
so you
Stevie
can
Wonder
sing
cover.
Close the Door, or what's the song?
Oh, I love that song. Can I Close the Door? Yeah,
yeah.
I love
You
that
should
song.
you should just sing about 30 seconds of that for us.
Oh my God, I can't sing.
Just start, just sing it.
Let me see if I can do it. Can I close the door? Oh Lord, can I walk away from those I'm so proud of? All right, that's all I got.
That's an amazing song. That's unfortunately that's also been this kind of the theme song for my personal relationships. But
oh, really?
we're gonna switch the subject now. So you're like the banking business has crashed. I can't stand kids, so I'm gonna go back to singing. There's so many. I had a chance to interview Audra McDonald, who is a legend, and
Yes.
the amazing thing is she says she still puts in the work. She passed Angela Lansbury, and she's still putting in the work. So how does one go from saying, I want to do this? And I have a daughter who's a theater major at UNI. She's a senior, right? So how does one go from saying, I can do this, to actually getting a shot on Broadway? I mean, there's
you know what? I think that a lot of life is easier than we think it to be, and it's our actions that make things happen. So if you decide that you want to do this, like I decided I want to be on Broadway, that was my decision. And every step that I took, every action that I did brought me to that place. And it actually opened up much easier than I thought it would be. When I got to New York, I wanted to be on Broadway. That was my thing. I knew I needed a job in New York, and I knew I needed to be in New York. So my mind was focused on getting me there at the time with an overall goal of being on Broadway. I got the job on a cruise ship in New York that would keep me in New York. And then once I was there, it was just going to auditions until I got what I wanted. And it wasn't hard. It was fun. It was the thing that was pulling me was the goal. So as long as I could just on after this thing that I'm going after, and still today, I do a lot of journaling and writing things down, and just vision casting and making sure that I have a goal that keeps pulling me forward to where I'm trying to go. So, in a lot of scenarios or situations, the doors just opened. I think purely because I willed it to open. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like my Broadway debut was done for a show that I had never seen, I had never auditioned for. They called me and asked, I was in Toronto at the time with Motown, and they called me and were like, hey, can you come in for this show? And my mom was there with me in Toronto. And I was like, no, I can't make it because my mom is here and I don't want to leave her in Toronto. My agent called me back and he was like, what if they're able to fly you down to New York? They'll teach you, they'll have the material taught to you before you get to New York. And they'll have you come in and audition and be back in Toronto within 5 hours. Will you do it? And I was like, absolutely. So I went down, did it. They had somebody in Motown to teach me the material before I got there. Went down, did the audition, went back home the next day. I got a call saying, you'll be making your Broadway debut in Beautiful the Musical. So in a lot of situations, as long as you will it to be so, and then you combine your actions with your intention, it'll happen. It will happen for you.
Now, the Color Purple, I want to shift to that because most folks are familiar with The Color Purple as far as the movie. Some have read the book. I had a chance to see The Color Purple years ago, at the Civic Center here in Des Moines. And I smile because there's a particular life event that marks that coincides with me going to The Color Purple, so I'll never forget. But talk about The Color Purple on stage, because there is a difference, whether it's Rent, whether it's Mamma Mia, there is a difference between what we see on the screen and what we see on the stage. So help individuals understand what they're going to see when they go to the Civic Center to see The Color Purple, contrasted to what they might expect from the movie.
So our director, John Doyle, has done a phenomenal job of stripping everything away from this show and getting directly to the story of The Color Purple. So when you come to see this show, we follow the life of Celie as she goes through a huge life transformation, but we also see 5 other characters go through transformations as well. We see characters like Suge Avery and Sophia, and the character that I play, Harpo, and Mr. and Nettie. You see people, we use a term a lot now that has become kind of trendy, which is the term change. Everybody's looking for change and we want change, but I don't think any of us have actually thought about what the process of change looks like. And so in The Color Purple, we get to see that. And we get to see it happen in people that we're very familiar with. We see a girl, Celie, who's thrown into a horrible situation, but she's able to triumph over all of that and to come out as a person who she has built. We see a woman like Suge Avery who has made some life choices and who has decided to, become the woman that she is. But then she has a self-realization that brings her to her change. Or we see a woman like Sophia who is violated in a way that it breaks her, and it breaks her down to a point that she's never been before. And she was a strong, one of those strong black women, and she's broken down in a way that she's never been to before. But then we see her out of that transform and change into this completely different woman. So when you come to
now, is that the character that Oprah played in the movie?
Yes, it is, and I play her husband. So yeah, we get to see that transformation, that change that happens in people's mind. You get to see it played out on stage, and it's a really good story. The singing is amazing, the acting is amazing. Our lead is Miss Adriana Hicks. She plays Celie, and she's amazing. So it's a really good show, and I hope that everyone comes out and and supports it and enjoy it.
Well, it's I think outstanding that the Civic Center is going to have the movie. It's interesting because it's not just an African American story. It is a human story, and you go across the planet, you see that it is a human story, but it also, I think, is very important in the sense that it is, to me, it's the kind of story that is represented by a universal message told by many of our great writers, poets, artists, and the one that comes to mind for me is Native Son, because a huge part of the argument is that when he rapes a white woman, he gets prosecuted, but when he raped a black woman, nothing. And to me, part of what's so important about The Color Purple is right now you have this hashtag Me Too movement. Well, it's kind of like Alice Walker saying, "Hey, us too."
Yeah.
This pain, this degradation, this this life is ours too. And I think that it was so important because the portrayal of black women in America so often has been they're super strong, end of story, move on. And we rarely have seen that side of the black woman's sojourn in America told. And so I think this is a singular piece in its significance.
Yeah. Because of their strength, a lot of times their humanity is overlooked. A lot of times their sensitivity is overlooked. And in this show, you get to see why they're strong. You get to see what builds them that way, or what builds people who are strong that way. Or, you get to see the human side of these people. And like you said earlier, it's not it is a show that is played by all African Americans, but this is a human story, and these are people that you can relate to. Like I like to say that we all know a man like Mr. Or we all know a woman like Sophia, or we all know a woman like Celie. And so now you get to see those people on stage and playing out the trajectory of their own lives.
Well, I found it so interesting. Right now we have this whole Harvey Weinstein thing, and I was looking at the different commentaries in response that were on CNN, and I forget her name, but there was an African American woman who said, "I don't see those who are coming forward now as particularly courageous or particularly heroic, since they're only now reacting and responding, and they're not talking about all those others who are still out there." And it was interesting because that was, I think, perhaps the only black female response that they portrayed in there. But how do we use art and theater to communicate the African American experience? I think of A Raisin in the Sun, or and Ain't Misbehaving, and some of these, or Porgy and Bess, that have managed to capture aspects of the African American experience that even movies so often seem to fail to grasp. I was reading an interview by Steven Spielberg, and he talked about he felt his one great failure or regret was that he didn't do justice to what Alice Walker created. So how does theater do justice to our story and our experience from your perspective?
Well, they say art imitates life, and for us on the stage, there is no going back. You know what I mean? Like, there is no cut and paste. So you're there, you're in the moment, and what you're giving is from your experience. So I think when we tell stories like this and we tell them on the stage, they're from a very honest place, and it's from the only place that you can touch at that moment. You know what I mean? Like, it's from your experience at that moment. So for me, and this is part of the reason why I decided to do theater and not any other, like not TV and film yet or anything else, because it's so it's there, it's now, it's real, it's live. There's no cut and paste. We can't go back. And when we're telling these stories, especially us on the stage, and Carrie Compare plays Sophia, my wife, and we were doing an interview once, and we were saying that when we're in our moments that are between the two of us on the stage, it's very much so how we remember our parents being, with each other, or how we remember our grandparents being with each other. And so that is a part of the Black experience that we've had. And so now we get to share that with everyone on stage. So I think for us live theater actors, that's the way that we share the experience, and that's the part that we play in this, is by getting on stage and reliving moments, or allowing moments to live through us every night on the stage.
Mm-hmm. What kind of sacrifice, what kind of discipline is required to be on the stage versus, as you might call it, the cut and paste world of electronic, projection? Because I know that when I read a lot of accounts about actors, they may show up on time, they may, if you don't get it right, you do new cuts and takes, and you don't, like you said, you don't get to do that when they're dancing in Memphis in high heels. They either dance or they break an ankle, but it's live, not Memorex. So
it's I'm extreme, and I'm extreme for a reason. And when you see the show, when you see The Color Purple, you'll see why I'm saying the things that I'm saying. But I don't talk outside of anything necessary. And I go to the gym as much as possible. I'm also a long distance runner, or I run a lot. But for this show, I've had to do a lot of squats and lifting and deadlifts and clean things like that. So you have to take care of yourself. I'm also a vegetarian, so making sure that I eat enough and eat right is important, and just rest as much as possible. When I was in Motown, and the reason why I'm saying this, the reason why a lot of what I just said is important, because when I was in Motown, it was my first show, and I was not privy of the things that I should be doing. So I managed to gain 50 pounds on Motown, the musical, on the tour. And that was not from, now Motown, the musical, I danced a lot in. So I was moving a lot, but it was because I was not getting the rest that I needed. I wasn't eating right. I wasn't being disciplined outside of work. So I've learned to, not be that and not do that. So the discipline that's required now for The Color Purple is a complete different set of disciplines. And I think it changes with each show you do. But with this one, it requires, the exercise, the squats, lifts, and rest, and just eating right.
So why do you need to, for this, I'm curious, why for this show do you need to build power versus stamina? Because it sounds
let's just say I pick up a lot of people in this show.
Oh, okay.
I lift a lot of women in this show, and so I just need to make sure that they're safe, I'm safe, and neither of us end up on the floor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
you sing in this show?
I sing in the show. I sing a lot in the show, with Sophia and by myself. And there's a lot of singing in the show. Every voice in this show is phenomenal. It has a gospel, jazzy, kind of operatic kind of feel, and it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're very, very excited about having it come here. what should our audience know? What should our folk know here that maybe I didn't touch on?
They should just come see. You should come see it. You should come see the show. If you're looking for tickets, they are at www.colorpurple.com, and we invite everybody from ages 8 up to see the show. It's a Tony Award-winning show, amazingly directed, and if it's not a show where there's a lot of dancing and production, but it is a very great story, and we invite everybody out to see it, and we can't wait to get to Des Moines.
Well, and the best part for you all is that you're coming here before the North arrives.
Right. Right.
You're not going to be here when it's 48 below with the wind chill factor.
Right. When we looked at the schedule, we're leaving. We're going to Atlanta next week, and then we head your way. But we looked at the schedule and we're like, we're getting out just in the nick of time. Just in the nick of time. The only place that we're worried about is Chicago. I want to say we'll end up there when it's really cold, but
there are worse places to be on the planet when it's really cold than Chicago, though.
Yeah, it is. But Chicago is kind of tricky. They're tricky cold. You don't really know. You don't know when it's gonna snow, when it's not gonna snow. But we're excited to come to Des Moines, though.
So how long does the tour last? And you and some of the others were in the Broadway production.
Yeah. I was in the Broadway production. Actually, in the Broadway cast, I was a swing, so I played all of the men, and sometimes 2 and 3 at a time. But I was there. Carla Stewart, who plays Shook, was there. Our Celie was on Broadway, and our Sophia was on Broadway. So we're all from the Broadway cast. And the tour goes until August 22nd. We actually end in D.C. That's our last city at the Lincoln Center.
Well, and I wanted to bring that up because folks need to understand that when they bring plays here, they are phenomenal, but they're not always as connected to Broadway as this is.
Oh yeah. This is directly from Broadway. We have the same director, the same associate director, the same musical director. The 4 of the lead players are from Broadway. There are 5 of the ensemble members of 10. There are 10 ensemble members, so 5 of them are from Broadway, and the rest have Broadway credits. They just weren't in this Broadway production. But this is directly from Broadway. It's just like going to New York at the Jacobs Theater on 48th Street, or 48th Street, sorry, and watching the show that was there that won the Tony.
Well, outstanding. Well, thank you so very much, and I don't know if you'll know where to eat when you get here, but if you say, what, I need to know where to eat, I tell folks on radio, you can't tell the difference between me and Denzel, but if you do decide that you want to get something to eat, you might not be able to tell me from Bookman. And you'll be like,
I'm going to call you, though.
Be like, I believe this brother probably knows where to get some food. So, well, it's an honor to have you all here, and looking forward to the show.
All right. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you so much.